This looks really good. I can't wait to play it. Yikes. Yeah, the game released as a broken, laggy mess.
Maybe that ray tracing was a little too much.
And despite all the lag from the graphics, the game wasn't half as pretty as the trailers. And don't even get me started on the gameplay. How did 2 years of development, multiple delays, and beautiful trailers result in this lackluster game? Today, I'll be answering what went so horribly wrong by analyzing the entire history of Five Nights at Freddy's security breach. Before we jump in though, I need to inform you that this isn't going to be any sort of theory video. It's going to be all the hard facts laid out. And lastly, please subscribe because your support makes these videos possible. Now let's begin with where Steelwool was as a studio before the development of the game.
We only had like 12 to 20 people.
12 to 20 people working on security breach.
Yeah.
It's important to keep in mind that Steelwool was unbelievably tiny for the job they were taking on. With that out of the way, we can now talk about the game's conception.
Yeah.
And so like Evan, who's one of our creative directors, the two of us were in a room working on ideas. Always knew we wanted to do this Pizzaplex. And we were talking about that with Scott. And it's like, oh, it'd be fun to do a big game.
Right.
Like a non-VR game.
And you guys have never done something like that before, right?
Right. Fly Hunter was the only what we call flat game.
Despite their lack of experience in non-VR titles, they pushed forward with the project. Now, unfortunately, we have to mention someone controversial. Wait, don't click off. I have to mention them. They designed the characters. I'm sorry. I don't have a choice. She designed the Glamrock animatronics as well as Vanny. She designed them as posters. I don't really know why. The only one here with an actual date is incorrect because it comes after the very first concept art, which isn't possible. Chica's poster specifically is dated July 26, 2019. Then this art was likely made shortly after those posters. This is one of the earliest versions of the atrium we ever see. This also has the artist's only official art of Vanny, but she never actually shared her Vanny or Vanessa concept art. But we do have the concept she did of Burn Trap. It was likely from later on in concepting, but I'm putting it here so we can not talk about her anymore. And here are two unused concepts she also did. The only thing to note is that the staff bot is bipedal rather than on wheels. Alright, that's all for her. This next one has the earliest date of any concept art. This one was made on June 19th, 2019. This was the last concept art made for about a month. We also get a look at the atrium, bearing a striking resemblance to the other concept art. I'm unsure if this was an established design, but it also persisted through the next few pieces too. Once the characters were concepted was likely when the Pizzaplex started being designed.
Evan and I, we went in one of our conference rooms, post-it notes, take out all our little note cards. What are locations that we would have? A restroom, a Chica maze, a mirror maze. It started as a mirror maze. We told our engineer guys, they're like, but it's more like fruity maze. So we started making all these locations based on the characters that were going to be there. Everybody had their own zones.
Yeah.
And we made this big flat map on a table.
Yeah.
Once the layout was planned, they could move on to concept art of the various rooms. Sadly, we don't have dates for any of the area concept art, but we're given a rough estimate of when in an interview.
When we started, like, 2.5 years ago, this is like back during Dreadbear. One of our other directors, Evan and I, we sat down with index cards and we did an overhead view of the whole building, right? This is what the space is, right? This is what we want. These are all different areas.
Concepting lasted from June till December. Here are the teasers that were made in June. These might have even been created before. The one of Freddy, Monty, and Vanessa all have the date of June 18th, 2019. But due to the different style in Vanessa's, we can come to the conclusion that the Roxy and Chica one were made before it. These were likely exported at the same time, but made beforehand. Vanny specifically has a different date, which is June 20th. Due to the background of the animatronic teasers matching the earliest teaser we have, this was likely made before official atrium concept art existed, which I'll show very soon. First, some background. A PlayStation blog post made just 2 days before the game released gives us a lot of insight into the game's history, including several pieces we can never see anywhere else, such as the atrium concept art. This was noted as the starting point on the blog post. It shows several iterations, including a sort of night mode. We even see the earliest iteration of Monty's Gator Golf. Mentioned next is Roxy Raceway, which has this image attached. This is concept art of a notably very different Roxy Raceway. While some elements do remain the same, such as the staircase, the overlook, and the information desk, everything else is basically different. While not in this post, there is also concept art of the Glamrock Salon before it was broken, which also features multiple signs and color schemes for the exterior. Next is uncredited concept art of Gator Golf. which interestingly shows Gregory playing it, and following this is the Gator Golf entrance, which actually has 3 versions. These 2 are exclusive to Sabine's portfolio. However, there's one more on the Backstage blog. This one was closest to the actual game before things were cut. We also have this concept art of the daycare by Lau, with several iterations of the play structures. A handful of these show concepts for the daycare's layout, including night mode. These images are being shown in what I believe is the order of conception, as each one appears to borrow elements from the one before it. The concept art looks super different from the final, especially the party rooms, as they were much more elaborate. There's even a little Freddy Butler. We even have concepts of the exterior, which look very close to the final, minus some cut airlocks, which were not in the final. The Backstage post also includes several images that were used for conception, like old arcade cabinets and a very specific carpet pattern, along with an image of a burnt-down pizzeria. Now let's continue in the timeline. This Freddy teaser was shown September 29th, 2019, which was around the middle of the concepting phase. There's also area sign concept art. There's one for Phaser Blast, Monty Golf, Kids Cove, and one for Roxy Raceway. In addition, we have concepts for the food. Sadly, most of this went completely unused, but it's really cool to see what wacky ideas they had for character-themed food. Now let's move on to additional character concepts. Here are the earliest Sun and Moon concepts we have. This one was even used in the game. Also, here's a concept for the old version of DJ Music Man. This version was actually used once, but then later was changed. Its textures are still in the game, which perfectly fit the model minus the head. There are also old animations, which deform the current version. There's also this art that was supposedly made mid-production of BB's Air Adventure. And that's all for the earliest art. The Backstage post gives us a bit more insight into the design philosophy of Steelwall. They explain how their experience with real-world family fun centers and similar jobs heavily inspired them. They add that a big design philosophy of theirs was making the Pizzaplex feel like a real place, along with keeping in mind the idea of Fazbear Entertainment's greed. The blog post then explains how the team wanted an attraction for each animatronic, which lines up with what we were told in the interview, with the first being Freddy's attraction, Phaser Blast, and I quote, "due to the ongoing adventures of Freddy in Space." However, there's no concept art with it. Also, Freddy in Space 2 released on November 28th, 2019, meaning concepting likely ended right before that, since that's when they started mock-up sets. Shortly after, on December 19th, Help Wanted Flat Mode came out, and this version had a secret ending. This secret ending showcases the Pizzaplex under construction, and this is when the game finally started being made.
Off to our sets guys, and then they took what was a 2-story building and they made a 3-story building. We're gonna keep it. Let's just add more stuff. That was one of those moments where it really exploded into a much bigger space.
And we started working on white box sets. So as people came available, then we started building a set, we started building the models and everything, and then COVID happened.
Whiteboxing must have happened at least before COVID. For those of you who don't know, a whitebox is the earliest version of a 3D modeled map. There are usually no textures or color. Something interesting about their map-making process was confirmed by a developer. The areas were all made separately and then put together later, and there's evidence of this. Phaser Blast, Monty Golf, and the Old Kitchen are all at the coordinate 00. That means it's very possible this is our earliest white box. What I'm showing right now is a paint-over version, meaning that concept art was drawn over top an existing white map. We know this is a paint-over because of the geometry in this corner. There are also various concepts for objects that were in Gator Golf. These were likely made when the area was in more of a state of completion. But this is just a guess. It could be that some, if not all of them, were made before. Except this concept art of the camper was probably made before the paint-over, since every detail about it is identical. The next one isn't a paint-over, but it is based off the actual model. This concept art gives us a glimpse into night mode, which was unfortunately completely cut from the game. Some notable details include Glamrock Gifts just being called Gift Shop, no pattern under Freddy's statue, no visible elevator, different lighting, and a weird boxy shape for the ceiling window hole. Also the posters. We can see some of these posters in the concept art, making them some of the earliest art of the characters. But that makes these drawings of Vanny and Vanessa likely the earliest iterations of the characters. This calendar also somewhat supports that, since it contains the even earlier posters along with these ones. It even contains the unique Vanny and Vanessa posters, which we never see the full versions of. Through this art, it's clear that they were experimenting with a sort of lights off mode. This would be later confirmed in an NVIDIA conference. This art must be newer than the last one because it has details that are closer to the final game. There are also several notable differences between the final game and this version, such as a bathroom on the right, as well as the gift shop staircase being placed different, and stairs in place of escalators. And now for paintovers of an area we never fully experienced. This is the old version of the sewers. We do actually see it in a trailer, but not even the leftovers are in the final game. There are only 2 remnants. We have volumes for pathing of the old layout. We even see a bit of it in the trailers. As a matter of fact, if you look closely on the left, you'll see a big concrete pipe, which is in the concept art. There are also 2 pieces of hidden dev text. This one refers to a yellow maze, and the entrance to it is pictured here, which is only seen in this concept art. This was the last area before the silo of the sewers. The other piece of dev text refers to the first yellow light maze, which was those volumes we saw earlier. The silo in this piece of concept art is still in the final game, but everything around it is completely different. This is also concept art from the area, but not a paintover. This concept art and one of the previous paintovers both feature this weird green sludge and valves instead of generators. That's all for area concept art up to this point, so let's continue in the timeline.
Started building the models and everything, and then COVID happened. We all had to go remote.
It's a big change.
Really hard to get around.
Right at the beginning of the COVID lockdown on March 24th, we got a new FNaF teaser! It's fair to say COVID had a very measurable impact on the game's production.
A lot of things just didn't align up perfectly for that, and there were a lot of reasons for that. I mean, obviously, studios and things kind of blame COVID for stuff, but there is a reason for that. You know, COVID took well-structured work systems and suddenly scattered them and expected the work to continue to flow. And it just doesn't work that way. Every member of Steel Wool got scattered across the country, and we're trying to just carry on with the workflow, and it was just really difficult.
But of course, the game still continued production. It's my belief that the next area made after the main 4 was the kitchen. It follows the same 0-0 coordinate trend, and it has an early naming convention, being daytime. But there's more. There's a very early map of the kitchen in the files. This could have been a way of sharing their plans remotely. It's just a guess, but I'm guessing it because there's no other reason for this to be in the files in my opinion. It also has very early audio volumes, which not only doesn't have the vat room, but it also has a very old version of the cafeteria attached. And there's also some hidden dev text from when the area was being made. But don't confuse this for the well-known dev text that's on the walls in the map. This developer text is only visible in the editor. There are actually 20 pieces in this old map. They each say the following. Laundry room. Part of this hallway is used to transfer food from the kitchen and to the back rooms of the food court. Loading dock. Emergency shutoff valves for the trash compactor. Small electric room that controls power for the kitchen and rooms around it. Freezer room. Chef Boyardee canned food is all stored here. Most of the food is stored in boxes. Probably should have used more boxes than cans for white box. This part of the wall is where semi-trucks back in to deliver their food. We can have one of the doors left open where a truck is still parked outside. This is where food shipment arrives. Heavy orders are carried out using forklifts. Short hallway that leads to different rooms. Not 100% sure where the third door will lead. This area will be the third layer in terms of back rooms. Kitchen area, laundry room, shower room is the second layer. This short room is the third layer, so make it dark and creepy. Alright, pay attention, this is important, it'll be over soon. Closed for gameplay. Bathroom, nothing much more about this room. This is the room workers toss their dirty clothes into shelves or laundry bins. Depending on what type of clothes the worker is using, kitchen worker, mechanic, etc., they're individually separated then washed on type at a time. This is where clean clothes are stored after they have been washed. Dirty laundry room. Shower room. Nothing much else to say about this room. Highway/hallway system. An area where forklifts are kept when not in use. Locker room. Workers wash clothing using the washing machines and fold the clothes on the table. Behind the wire fence is a back area for maintenance workers only. Workers push carts through here that are cleaned and folded. This is also a small storage area where workers place things on shelves. It's unknown whether or not this process was used for other areas, and none have an early layout map either. The only other sort of area development thing is found upon loading the world in a model viewer. This reveals the endo room made entirely out of spheres. Now, slightly later in the process is this extra note text. This can be seen in several maps, but the only one that has more than one is again the kitchen. One of these texts says electrical box, another says fence gate locked, and the last one says requires staff bot. They're pretty self-explanatory, just saying what should be added that hasn't yet. However, the one that says requires staff bot is a bit more confusing. The answer actually lies in cut content, which we'll get to later. For now, I'll be showing you the only oldest remaining map that was likely completed around this time. First, I have to disclaim that there's a bunch of random broken chunks. For some reason, loading the kitchen in Security Breach just does this, but I wanted to load it in-game to show it authentically, since the trailers were all recorded in-game. Do you see it in the distance there? We're going there now. I firstly need to note that all the lights are broken here pretty much, so it's very dark. So bear with me. But this is what it is like loaded in-engine, so this is the most authentic look at it we can get. I could import the new lighting, but then it would be inaccurate to the old map. So I'm leaving it dark so we get as close as we can to the original lighting. The very well-known large vat room used to be connected to this warehouse area, and neither the vat room nor this connection to the loading dock are present in the final game. I can't directly compare this to the final kitchen, but I will be pointing out the differences. Like this door that leads to the vat room, which would be otherwise blocked by the generator. This room, of course, isn't in the final game though. I wonder what its intended purpose was originally, because we have genuinely no idea. It could have just been for looks. Also, I don't think I've ever seen anyone show these lights. By the way though, that door where the generator is actually leads to the part that's supposed to be underwater now, at least in the final game it is. This leads to both the vat room and the storage closet from earlier. This connects to the freezer, however, it looks a bit emptier than normal. I think it's because it's missing a floor texture and it's missing all of the ice effects. Also, the wall textures are misaligned. There's a weird missing block from the loading dock area. This is where forklifts normally are. For some reason, there's a weird checker pattern and a floating sticker, which actually appears in the final game right inside this forklift's wheel. The missing forklifts and of course the missing floor are both in the missing chunks. Unfortunately, a lot of it's very empty, so it's not the most interesting, but there is this extra doorway that isn't in the final game. The main door also used to not be locked by Chica's voice box, but instead a security door, but that was likely changed to prevent you from just outrunning her. This bathroom more closely resembles the female daycare bathroom, while in the final game it's a gender-neutral one. A lot of the assets were completely changed. This hallway is also in the floating chunks. This version of the bathroom more closely resembles the final trailer bathroom actually, despite it likely being from 2020. There are also some completely deleted versions of the map, as there were gendered showers before, which are in the files but completely empty. While the bathroom still remains gender neutral, there are empty maps referencing both male and female showers. Outside of a few missing details, the bathrooms appear largely the same as the current version, along with the rest of the kitchen, the main difference being the lighting. However, there are a few older assets, including these wooden stalls. I seriously can't explain why there's so many missing giant chunks, but this is such an odd one. Specifically, this shower here. Why did the rest of it load? This part also looked to be a bit unfinished though, but it could just be a missing texture or something. Now for the next part of the bathrooms, the laundry area / utility. We'll be starting with the utility since it's much smaller. I'm unsure if this was intentional, but you can climb over this little toolbox and table in order to get to the other side without opening the locked fence. This may have been the original way to get down to the sewers, but that's just a guess. Minus a bit of decor, it remains largely the same, though it lacks the staircase that leads to the silo. Interestingly, the other side also has boxes that would let you climb over the fence, though there appears to be a missing wall here. The next area seems to be mostly the same as it was before, but it definitely seems far emptier. There's also this random shelf here. Unfortunately, it's mostly pretty boring though. This part also is largely the same, minus a glitching wall. Now for the laundry room, which has a giant missing hole in the floor, so we have to cut to the left. This area seems even more similar to the final version, again with more generic decor. I'm unsure why the entire kitchen was overhauled, since most of it seemed to be finished, especially the laundry room. However, there is one little issue here, and that is the clipping of the fence into one of the washing machines. The rest is fine. There's also the dev text, but aside from the fence, most of it looked to be completed. Something that's ironically still in the new version and persists in this older version is these pipes that you can walk through. And what's even more ironic about it is that the pipes above do have collision. And that's everything for the laundry area. Now let's go back to the beginning. Straight left from the entrance of the bathrooms is another exit, which sadly again has a very big floor gap. The closet over here has a different floor it looks like, but it's all the same old same old. Identical layout, mostly the same props, and missing a bunch of other stuff. In the final version, there are a bunch of rugs and stuff on the floor here. There's no Monty fence though, even in the missing chunk, which we'll get to in a second, so this was likely before it was developed. There's this really weird unfinished box area right next to where the trash compactor should be. It's likely that an older model was used and it was deleted from the files when it was updated for the new map, so it's not even present in the missing chunks. this area does actually appear to be almost identical to how it is in the trailers, with the biggest difference being the lighting, and maybe wall color. As I'll show soon, a lot of these areas use different textures and assets compared to the final versions of the areas. The kitchen layout itself seems to have a lot of differences, with most of it remaining the same, but many objects are in the way, blocking certain paths, creating somewhat of a maze. The server room is also different, which I'll show more of in a bit. Now here's the rest of the kitchen. Most of it is hard to navigate because of all the obstacles. It was very maze-like, which is honestly really cool to see. It would have made this section a lot more challenging. I could imagine this feeling pretty unfair if you get stuck in a corner or something and die. So it was probably changed to adjust the difficulty, especially as the game was aimed more towards kids. There's also a notably larger amount of ovens. All the doors here are also in the floating chunks. One thing to note though is that everything seems a lot more connected and unrestricted because of all the missing doors. But that's by no means intentional. The cafeteria would have been right here, but those audio volumes I showed earlier are even older than this map, as they used to be connected and no longer are. Once Monty's Chase Hallway was made, it was connected to that instead. But that version of the cafeteria is completely lost. We know it wasn't connected by the time of the trailer though, as it's not visible in that. This has a giant missing chunk here. It's pretty lackluster though, even when you actually load the chunk. I'm sorry I can't show this in its proper state. I know it's really weird to see a floating forklift. There's also this part of the floor with really weird shading, but it's perfectly walkable. Here's one of the most interesting and different parts. This is the server room. It has gray server box things instead of what we had in the final game. Since it was so lacking in theming, this could have even been from an asset pack. In fact, a lot of assets in this game are straight from asset packs, and they were slightly modified to fit the game's theming. This upper area is completely empty though, but there is something really cool about it. You used to be able to enter through both doors, making it more like the original FNaF games. In addition to this, the size and how it's decorated are identical to the office. I'll show you the office very soon, but we still have a few areas to get through. Interestingly, the catwalk is missing its fence, but it's not in the floating chunks. The asset must have been replaced later or something, because it's completely gone from the entire map, including the area after this. You probably recognize this room from the second trailer, which was missing from the final release. I think it was just an error though, since the shadow still remained on the wall. This animation on the wall is also different. The rest of the office is interestingly mostly the same. The rest could be said about the whole kitchen though. Here are the other catwalks, which are missing all their railings. The most different thing about this area is that the lower level is accessible. In the final game, it's completely flooded and the stairs are gone. It is a bit of a bummer that this was completely unused in the final game, since it kind of had a lot of potential, but at the same time, there's not much down here minus that one doorway. In fact, there may have been more doorways planned, as there are some right outside this wall in the final game. Weirdly, the stairs here don't even go down all the way. That I can't explain. It's not even in the floating chunks, but to be fair, a lot of things aren't. This actually is in the final game, but I think it's borderline impossible to see. There's this weird little corner with a bunch of sticky notes on the floor and Faz Life magazines. This was probably some world building or lore, because, well, this is way too specific. Now here's that doorway I mentioned earlier. It's the only one in this lower area. Something I should mention is that, as opposed to the large vat room, these vats are completely different looking, as they're completely smooth and adorn a Fazbear logo, while the large vats more closely resemble silos. I'm not sure if it's intentional or if it was just an early asset or something. We'll never know, I suppose. But I'll show that map in a bit. And now for the final room in the area. This area uses a lot of placeholders, which might actually be from an asset pack, but I'm not completely sure. Also, this bathroom layout is terrible. There's a generic refrigerator and an old vending machine that was actually in one of the teasers, specifically the one that ended up being the pause screen background. Look really closely on the left. That's what this vending machine was. Now back to the map. This gap was intentional. It's not some sort of missing chunk. It used to be the intended entrance to the area. The final game's entrance is just completely missing. It's cool that something specific as the puppet plush is here this early on when there's barely any other decor. This control panel is yellow and completely intact, unlike the one in the final game. There are also a ton of pipes connecting everywhere. There are some in the final game, but not even close to as many. This desk is also a control panel in the final game. And that's it for the old kitchen. There is another potential pre-trailer asset though. This is the office. Now I can finally uncensor what I was saying. It's the daycare office! This may not be its intended spot, as it's kind of in a completely random place. It also has this concept art of sun and moon, And that's it. Now moving forward till April 21st, 2020, Funko listed their upcoming projects, with one of them being security breach figures. What we didn't know is that the names were still temporary, including Vanny being completely misspelled and the game being called FNaF Pizzaplex. Ironically, on the exact same day this happened, the official logo image that would be posted on Scott Cawthon's website was made, and guess what happened 3 days later on April 24th? The designs were leaked. Funko listed a calendar on Amazon with placeholder art. Of course, old Scotty C had to make a Reddit post about it. So I woke up to a barrage of upsetting emails. For this fanbase, the day a major corporation spoiled the next major release of the FNaF franchise was the most important day of their lives. But for me, it was Friday. But seriously, this is obviously very frustrating for me, but not that surprising anymore. It's just another day in the life of FNaF. It makes me really miss the days of just making everything myself and handling everything myself, because at least then I had someone I could trust, and even then, sometimes I'd let myself down by spoiling something. I am sorry to everyone though, this isn't the way I wanted to introduce the characters. I wish they'd at least used the finished artwork, or even the finished concept art. Instead, they uploaded a low-res, desaturated, compressed, watermarked thumbnail of concept art they photoshopped together themselves. Obviously, I'm disappointed, but trust me when I say that Steel Wool is on top of things. The game itself is looking amazing. By the way, Pizzaplex is not the name of the game. This post confirms that Pinky Pill's posters were actually the concept art for the characters. Shortly after this, on May 5th, the official name of the game was revealed, along with the logo. The Vanessa teaser was shown June 11th, and shortly after on the 30th, the Vanny teaser was shown. And about half a month later, on July 15th, Scott started hiring voice actors. The list of roles include Friendly but Annoying Cleanbot, Metal Femme Fatale, What a Sweet Kid, No Evil Intentions, Robotic Overlord, Kid in a Box, and Kid on the Run. This is a bad situation. Last but not least, there was one more leak. On August 6th, Trends International leaked a poster which officially revealed the design for Vanessa. 2 days later, for the FNaF anniversary, Scott posted these on Reddit. It was around this time, or shortly after, that the footage for the trailer was recorded, the earliest of which we get a glimpse at. It was at the end of the PlayStation Live that revealed the game. As you can see, it was incredibly brief, but this is an early version of the trailer. It has notable differences like duplicated reflections, different cutouts, and in this room, the lighting and palm trees are very different. The hole where the elevator was also square at this time. This camera angle is slightly different, there's extra lights that weren't there in the final, and there's debug text in the top left corner. That makes this the earliest footage we ever see of the game. Early footage being used for this montage points to the fact that this trailer was finished last minute. It can be speculated that the footage wasn't ready at the time Sony requested it, thus this placeholder footage was used instead, and they forgot to replace it once the trailer was finished. But that's just my theory. Now let's move on to the actual official trailer.
Gregory, your friends are worried about you.
This trailer was unlike anything we'd ever seen in a FNaF game. What seemed to be the antagonist had dialogue. There were already bits of a story, and the graphics looked amazing. It was also fully 3D, which is something we never had before. To some, it was unbelievable.
This is not FNaF! That's not FNaF! No.
And for many, it set their expectations from 10 to 1000. We now understood exactly what Scott was talking about. The game really did look amazing. Even though some of the areas look very close to the final versions, there are still a lot of differences. First, I'll show you the differences between the trailer and the early trailer. Here's the trailer we got, and now the early trailer. The lighting, reflections, palm trees, and elevator cutout were all different. Phaser Blast is significantly less altered, with the main difference being the reflections and lighting. Now here are screenshots side by side of the final game versus this first trailer. As we know, the vat room was cut, but also the lighting was very different, which I guess could be said for most areas, including this main kitchen. There are a lot more differences in Phaser Blast. The VIP lounge specifically is incredibly different, only the light, the disco ball, and the rocket seem to remain the same. It looks like the red walls were completely redone, doors were added, and both the cutouts and the tower are in a slightly different position. The most different of these is the lobby. Nearly every asset looks to have been redone, minus the pink and blue lights on the walls. I'm not going to list every change because we'd be here all day, so here's just another comparison. Something else you might have noticed is the atrium in the background, which we'll get to in a second. Here's the final comparison between the zoomed out lobby and the final version. Most of the walls and things were changed. In the background of this trailer, we can see the earliest version of the atrium. It has some random lights that wrap the walls, and the walls themselves are noticeably black. It might look tiny, but that's only because the FOV is just very weird. But this isn't even the earliest version. Apparently there was a version that's 2 floors, while if you look closely you can tell that this version was 3 floors, due to both an overhang and visible escalators. Due to its all-black walls and lack of notable decoration, it could be guessed that this was a relatively recent remodel. So we know it's crazy early because the ceiling in the earliest trailer is the same as the atrium's current floor, so they likely were just reusing the asset at the time. In the final version of the trailer, we can look closely through the elevator hole and see the atrium ceiling arches, further confirming that this was closer to the final game's version. We actually have some leftovers from the gameplay trailer in the files, being gameplay trailer mode. This file contains a lot of the older names for the areas, including White Box Laser Tag being Phaser Blast, and Stage Area, which is what the atrium used to be called. Another file also has remnants of an older version of the game, which has a few oddities, like a lobby lounge and lobby bridge being mentioned, which are not in the final game, but it could have been an early naming convention for the Phas pad, and the area between the atrium and the lobby. This file is also the only place in the game where areas are not listed in ABC order, leading me to speculate that it's the order areas were completed in, as this file relates to a gameplay mechanic which probably wouldn't be implemented until areas were complete enough, which was the heat level system. This basically meant that the longer you spent in an area, eventually the animatronics would start heading that way. There is one potential flaw in the theory though, and that's because of the backstage post, which states Phaser Blast was the first set mockup completed. But I want to mention that this is the first mockup completed. Many of the maps were not fully finished until later, but we'll never know for sure. For now, here's the order of maps in the file. It goes the kitchen, then Phaser Blast, then the atrium, followed by the East Arcade, then the West Arcade, then Roxy Raceway, Gator Golf, and the daycare. I really don't know if it's true at all though. What I do know is that
Look at this place! It's a disaster!
That's really the only example when my idea of how a game was going to go was misaligned with how things were going. I had a very specific story in mind, and it is very different than the one that got in the game. And I think a part of that is the way that I conveyed that to Steel Wool. I was trying to tell Steel Wool to do specific things, put specific items in specific places, have specific characters do certain things, meanwhile not telling them what the story plot was. In my head, I was thinking, okay, when people find this, they will connect this to this to this, and it will all be revealed. That didn't work out very well because they got all of these pieces and they thought it was their job to connect them in a way that made sense. And so really what you ended up having were the same pieces, but telling completely different stories. They were taking pieces they didn't fully understand and trying to craft a story out of them. And again, I don't blame them for that. I blame myself for that because I guess what I should have done is just said, hey, here's the story. Here's why these pieces are here. Here's how they're supposed to connect. Originally, Burn Trap was never supposed to move. He was supposed to just be something you saw in the corners, almost like a decaying movie prop, and you never fully understood what his purpose was. And he had a very specific purpose. Well, obviously, that's not what we got in Security Breach. It didn't turn out the way anybody wanted.
both COVID and Scott's approach to the game spelled disaster for the project. Well, hindsight is 2020. On October 26th, Help Wanted's mobile port was released. Along with it, Princess Quest, a big part of Security Breach's story. If only the story wasn't so confusing. It's a shame that poor management and miscommunication ruined something that had so much potential. But who cares? We got cool merch! On November 10th, Scott announced that he would be revealing some new Funko merch, which specifically gave away details about the gameplay. One shows Gregory inside Freddy, and the other shows Vanny and Vanessa next to each other. What gameplay does that second one show? Only 7 days later, Scott told us some disheartening news. It's really long, so I'm just gonna summarize how it goes. Hey guys, the first teaser I made said Security Breach was gonna be released in 2020. Steel Wool said they could. I checked last month, it was 3 times bigger than it was supposed to be. And they said, yeah, Scott, isn't it great? And Scott was all like, dude, it's not gonna be finished in time, man. Get a move on. I actually didn't like how big it was and I complained about it, but they didn't stop expanding the scope. And even though COVID happened, we didn't want to shrink the scale or cut a bunch of stuff. And yeah, now it's not coming out till 2021. Early 2021.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
Then Scott realized his big mistake not even a month later, as development on his Apology for the Delays game started as early as late December. But how do we know this?
Chocolate? Chocolate! Chocolate!
Data on this stupid piece of chocolate shows the earliest date of December 26th. The file may have been reused for multiple assets, so that's why it also says January 7th, as that was the final day the file was touched. Nothing really happened until a new trailer was released. However, we do have one pre-trailer asset, and that is Bowling Alley Test, which has a fully functional bowling minigame in it that was never in the final game. I use the term functioning lightly. Yeah, it's not finished, but a lot of work was done, including placeholder graphics. They all look weirdly stretched, but the animations, along with everything else about the game, is abysmally slow. Also, there's a feature where you can drag your mouse to change the direction of the ball, which I don't think I've seen anyone discover. Due to the weird slowness of the game, it's borderline impossible to get a strike. But here's another one of the animations. You can definitely tell it was very heavily in the testing phase, because if you get a spare, you'll get not only a special animation, you'll eventually get an incredibly long replay. And I mean very long. It takes forever. That's how long it takes. And then it takes even longer for this camera angle. I genuinely cut 10 seconds forward. Using the skip button actually lets you skip the roll, and it plays out accurately. I have no idea how they did that. After the 10 rounds, you get this prompt. And no, you can't click anything. You're sent back to where you started, right next to the button. And now it's time to show off the actual map. This version of the map appears to be slightly before the trailer, as it's missing many of the decorations that are present in it, but the layout and walls and basically everything about it all match up. It also has this big window that shows Roxy Raceway. There's an interesting back hallway that was seemingly never finished. And if it was ever finished, there's still dev text here. It was completely removed from the files before final release. And the door holes are replaced by walls. There's actually a remnant of these door holes in the final game though, but it's only seeable in dark mode. The light cuts off where the door holes used to be. Making this map load the entirety of Roxy Raceway with RTX is kind of insane. I'm unsure if it's optimized, but even if it was, the current game can barely run max RTX with Bonnie Bowl alone. The lighting also seemed much simpler, at least in this point in the game. In fact, my game's running perfectly fine with max graphics. It probably would have worked with the final patch of the game. I think the game suffered and was overly optimized since it needed to run on the PS4. Even without RTX, it looks pretty nice. This is one of the only early maps that still has its lighting. It might actually use the final game's lighting, I'm not sure. There's an unfinished area behind this wall with a bunch of soap. Because it has most of a floor and some lights, I'm assuming it's an unfinished hallway. Now let's move on to the bathrooms, which have a side entrance, weirdly enough. There was a little back room back here before there were bathrooms, as you can kind of tell. And then here's where the bathrooms used to be. Either they weren't finished at this point, or they just were part of a separate map. There are glowing chairs along these tables, which are very similar to the chairs in Phaser Blast. They have the same exact color scheme, and they're both fully glowing. Most of the area, minus some decor, looks to be completed, including a lot of lighting. There's also a big noticeable gap for the West Arcade hallway. This is something we only ever see in the second trailer. Now going to this counter, we can see that the staff bot was default rather than the costumed version in the final game. Behind the counter is also mostly the same as the final game. This simply appears to be a snapshot in the middle of development rather than a completely separate version of the map. Maybe these outer areas simply weren't even complete at the time. Something interesting to note here is that this little stop barrier is here and it has a hex logo with the text B1. It could be referring to the basement, or maybe it's just a stock asset. In this version, the desk is fenced off, while in the final version, it's completely open. There's also this weird spiral carpet. It also has computers with a lock screen when you get far enough away from them. And that's everything worth noting about this area. Believe it or not, there is one more pre-trailer asset, and it's an early version of the Monty Chase. The lighting is completely different from here compared to the gameplay trailer. Here's a side-by-side comparison. In the pre-trailer, everything was notably more shiny, and weirdly there was white lighting on the floor. With that out of the way, let's watch the actual trailer.
Gregory.
And it looks worse, and still no gameplay, despite a supposed early 2021 release. At least some areas, like El Chips, were looking really solid. It may be cool and pretty though, but it's a lot less dark. Despite the same dark undertones from the dialogue over the trailer, it was starting to look not too scary. Many fans, with somewhat good reason, were disappointed by this trailer. Thankfully, Scott came to the rescue on Reddit once more. He basically explains that it was a tech demo and wasn't an official trailer, and that gameplay wasn't in the video on purpose, to save for the next trailer. In addition to this, we were promised that in March, we would get the official gameplay trailer. Here is the official earliest gameplay footage we know of. This looks to have been recorded as a test for the trailer. Something else to note is that the walk speed here is much lower. Here's how it is in the final game for comparison. Now let's move on to the comparison of this trailer to the final game. This is far closer to the final game than the other trailer, but there are still loads of differences. The reasoning behind some of the changes is very questionable though. For example, the number of tiles on the floor went from 6 to 8, which wouldn't be that weird, but in the final game, it reverts back to 6. As for other changes, there are garage doors instead of elevators like in the final. The light position and the gate seem to be changed, plus the lights along the walls, and honestly, basically everything there. They completely changed the layout of the gift shop here too. The lighting is also different, opaque windows are now transparent, and the FastPad sign here is both older and larger. It's like they spent most of their time changing things instead of just sticking to a final design. Also, by looking closely right behind Freddy's statue, you can see doors, which once led to the atrium food court. Now for El Chips. This one is infamous because of how much it changed. A lot of it's very similar to the final, it just lacks that big wall, which divides the area in the final game, and the floor is no longer shiny. Nothing in between the old wall was cut though, as even in the final game, it almost lines up perfectly with the old version. It's only slightly different. If I was to turn around, you'd see that everything was the same, but it's a trailer, I can't. This is another that changed a lot. The lighting here is notably darker, and the pathway to the West Arcade is gone. Also, here's the area compared to the test map. It's obviously much closer, but you can tell the test comes earlier because it's missing so much. And here it is compared to the final game. It really emphasizes the differences. This area isn't even in the game's files, but there's a somewhat similar wall. Now to move on to the kitchen. It looks almost exactly the same as the final game, minus the lighting. Of course there are differences, they're just harder to notice than others. I would also compare this to the old kitchen, but I can't since the old kitchen doesn't actually have proper lighting. It can be predicted that around this time the map was finally finished, which is likely when this was made. This might look familiar as it's actually the early version of the directory, and this was made using the actual in-game model of the map. And we know this because the walls line up almost identically with the actual map. But many things were resized for this early directory in order to make it easier to view everything at once. Also, since this is the directory, there are purposely no backstage areas present. Even with a few slight modifications, there are still some notable differences from the final game. For instance, the Roxy Raceway entrance is open. Also, Mazer Size is in a completely different spot in the map. Lastly, and most notably, there's a different entrance from Rockstar Row to the atrium. And there's a little room in the top left, which we'll get to later. For the time being, let's continue to the trailer.
When I first found you.
This trailer is weird. There's dialogue from characters who are never in the final game. And this is the old Vanny mask. We've seen Vanny, she doesn't wear it anymore. A lot of these shots are never in the final game. In fact, some of the areas from these cinematics aren't in the game at all. The game also looks even worse than the last trailer. It doesn't help that in several clips in this trailer, the game is visibly lagging. At least it makes sense why they had to optimize it. We also got our first cinematics, and again, none of which were in the final game. By the way, feel free to skip forward, I just want to show this because you likely haven't watched this trailer in a long time. Many theories went around about the animatronics being under some dark control. The monitor room was infamous because it was never in the final game anywhere. The Monty hologram isn't in the final game, and the list goes on. I mean hell, Rockstar Row was pink. Mind you, the game was supposed to be releasing in early 2021 at this point. It was really nice to see the gameplay, and it looked pretty cool, but there were a lot of disappointing things if you look closer. In fact, the only gameplay we see in this gameplay trailer is walking. That's literally it. Oh, and we check our Fazwatch, but that's only so we can walk with the plan. A lot of things in this trailer raise questions, and a lot of them will be answered later. To tease that a bit, the entire main gameplay mechanic was completely different. It was a one-life, 6-hour survival game. The animatronics would track which locations you've been to, and if you stayed in one place for too long, the animatronics would start heading towards your location. This was that cut mechanic I was discussing earlier with the file. This was only one of the main mechanics of the main gameplay. Now let's directly compare this trailer to the final game. This first shot kind of doesn't exist. The area must have been significantly altered before the game's release. This area remained largely the same, the only difference being the lighting. Gator Golf no longer has a projector and a lot of the textures were changed, but the layout remains the same. Rockstar Row's glass was made incredibly scratchy, so here's how it looks from outside. The walls were made blue and a lot of the decor was moved around. This area is basically non-existent in the final game, but this is the closest I could get. Here's another view of Rockstar Row. You can see that Chica's name actually changed. The rest of the area remains nearly identical. Here's the first ever daycare shot. The background elements of this area were changed greatly, but the structure itself stayed about the same. It's missing the net and the lighting though. Here is Chica's room. It barely has any decoration compared to the final. Every single piece of decor in this room was changed. The daycare play area entrance is one of the most changed. These big changes started to make a lot more sense when the developers confirmed that it was the least polished area in the gameplay trailer. Now here's our first look at the kitchen since the first trailer. This kitchen is no different, minus some boxes. For some reason, this trailer clip was mirrored. This is the only instance of that ever happening in any of the trailers. The flip version lines up perfectly though, revealing that basically all the neon was removed. The daycare looks so nice with all the yellow starlights overhead. Now most of them are gone, leaving the remaining ones honestly feeling a little out of place. Roxy's green room is the same story as Chica's. It's basically completely redone. Usually they only add things, but in this case they removed Monty's decal. The rest is pretty much the same. This is the shot right before the Faz watch is pulled up. It actually looks super ugly in the final game. I wonder why they had to optimize it so much. Here's the view that's actually on the Faz watch. You can see that the catwalks were barely there. Here's how this shot of the play area looks in the final game. It's just missing some decor, and it's very green. This next shot was basically unreplicatable, since the area doesn't exist in the final game. This part of the chase was though, but there isn't much to say about it. This shot lines up nearly identically. The area seemed to have been barely changed. The only thing to note here is that that big hallway once led to Phaser Blast. Here's our fullest shot of the daycare. You can really see how early on in development this play structure was. Sun also looks a little weird here. Here is a beautiful view of Roxy Raceway, and here it is in the final game. Yeah, this really sucks. I tried clipping to get a more faithful view though. Most of the construction remains the same, but there's a window, some rainbow thing, and more repetitive decor on the left. There's also these random white box things. The castle on the left is both blue and much larger than it was in the original game. It also appears to be more well lit. Something else to note is that the flashlight had a much larger range. As for the last two cutscene shots, they seem to be impossible to replicate as they don't line up well with the map at all. The caution sign here is on the wrong side of the door compared to the cutscene. There was also nothing like the trailer shot of Burn Trap. Custom versions of the map were probably made for these cutscenes, and that's all for comparisons. It's also crazy that the only real gameplay we saw was walking and looking at the map. So did they have more stuff planned? Was everything else they tried cut? I honestly don't know, but I do know someone who does.
Hey everyone, it's me, DK, also known as the Remains Guy by some. As a developer and lead for arguably one of the biggest cut content restoration mods for Security Breach, I come across a lot of crazy and interesting things most or even no people know about. For the sake of this video, and to help out my friend Loon Moon, I'll be covering the cut gameplay for Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. While Security Breach is famously known for its riveting gameplay, there were actually many concepts that were explored and even implemented into the game before its removal. Let's cover the first developed and main figurehead of gameplay, the Faz Watch. As some of you may already have known, the Faz Watch was completely different as shown in the February 2021 gameplay trailer, where it sported a much different and arguably more stylistic look than what is shown in the current release. But the Faz Watch itself also held different gameplay elements as well. Let's start off with the camera stab. First off, what we can see is a grayed out eye icon. It is presumed that this icon would actually enable a light source from the camera as discovered in its code, allowing the player to easily illuminate any dark areas, which would have been especially useful during the power outage segments of both survival mode and story mode. Secondly, was the ability for the cameras to become destroyed or stunned as depicted in this cut sprite. Now how this would have actually happened is up to debate, though I have a sneaking suspicion the animatronics might not play nice if some camera is stalking them. Fourth, while not technically cut, are these room name variables for each camera. Every time a developer places a camera actor down, they have 2 name variables to fill in, location name and room name. For nearly 90% of the cameras in the game, the room name variable is not filled in, leaving the text field completely blank. But some areas, such as the kitchen, developers did actually fill in this variable. Next section is the map tab. Firstly, while not cut, did you know that the map could do this? Never in my 1,000 hours of Security Breach gameplay have I known this. Secondly, the markers. As Freddy said when he lied to us,
check your fast watch. I will mark both locations on your fast map.
Leftover enumerators do speak about map markers depending on the amount of tasks to do at the location and what location the marker is placed at. Next up is the inventory tab. This one had 2 subcategories, equipment for equipable items and collectibles for essentially everything else. Rather than being in the pause menu, players could have actually accessed their inventory inside of their FazWatch, with 6 separate categories for all the collectible items that they had collected, being toys, food, trophies, missed, characters, and lost and found. Oddly enough, inventory data tables contain no items under the missed category, and code for the missed category is actually completely ignored in leftover widgets. In this inventory, there would have been a cut item tumbler, allowing users to have 3D views of items they collected to view all the details. Like this texture you wouldn't be able to see half of for the daycare pass. Even has the old Freddy logo. Neat! Next is the Logs tab, which is actually just a header category for 2 subcategories. The first one being Missions, or Notes, tab. The Missions tab doesn't have much cut content aside from removed task timestamps, where your watch would detail the time you completed a task for a mission. This could have served useful as survival mode, directing players on what they needed to improve to increase their time. Lastly is the Messages, or formerly Inbox, tab. Leftover UI reveals that some messages actually would have been accompanied with audio messages attached. That covers the main facet of the FazWatch itself, though it also has a stats bar at the bottom, which displays the amount of party passes the user has, a flashlight power meter, a Freddy power meter, and your security level. For anyone who has seen rumors online about a FazWatch power variable, that does exist, though it is actually just a flashlight's power meter. The FazWatch never utilized power itself. It runs off of nuclear batteries? Hey Loon, you haven't been recording this footage yourself, right? Okay, someone go bring him to the first aid station. Let's move to the next segment. Next are the equipable items that Gregory has in-game. I'll quickly cover the changes for them. For the Fazcam, internally known as the Flash Beacon, there are 2 cut Fazcam upgrades. These each would have given an extra charge to the Fazcam. Of course, you might think this would be quite overpowered, which is why originally the Fazcam would not recharge. You would need to treat it the same as the flashlight and take it to a flashlight recharge terminal, and that would restore all your charges. And it must be explained that yes, camera canceling was a fully intended feature. There's specific code allowing it to happen. It was just poorly made. I'm looking at you, Creeper Monty. Next up is the Faster Blaster. This doesn't really have much cut aside from differently sized UI and a different recharging scenario. Where recharging the entire bar after 45 seconds, it would have actually filled each individual segment progressively at a faster rate. Now on to the next one. You know those useless distractions that no one uses? Yup, there were more, though this one might have actually been a bit more useful. A seemingly breakable distractible was able to be grabbed and thrown by the player, as evidenced by its file name and leftover collision noise. I don't think it's a stretch to say that this placeholder throwable was meant to signify throwable ceramic plates. This throwable would have served as a noisemaker distraction, allowing players to distract animatronics without having to compromise their location. Next up is leaning. Have you ever wanted to see what's going on without eagle-eyed Roxy spotting you? Leaning will allow the camera to look around the corner without giving away your position. Leaning has a leftover keybind set at C for some reason, and an unused boolean inside of Gregory's blueprint, along with an unused rotation point on the left, which likely would have been the location for interpolating the camera. No clue what happened to the right though. How about another extension to a useless mechanic? Peeking in hiding spots. Nearly all hiding spots had peek points, allowing the player to look and observe the outside surroundings to see if any threats had left without leaving the safety of their own hiding spot. Interestingly enough, this is the only cut mechanic that is still used in the game. In fact, it's mandatory to use. That's right, the opening first aid sequence, we actually utilized the peek feature to peer in on Freddy and Vanessa's conversation. This can serve as a pretty good idea on how it would work, with having the player shift to a different location inside the hiding spot and peering out to see what's going on outside. This feature was likely scrapped to force players to use the underutilized cameras more, but that doesn't work when no one uses hiding spots either. Golfing! We love it, don't we? As Loon covered earlier, there were some early concept arts for golfing in the Pizzaplex? That's right, rather than magically possessing a golf ball in the arcade, we magically possessed a golf ball in the Pizzaplex. Yeah, no Gregory putting or cool glow-in-the-dark rooms. We just would have had the ability to play on the courses we see in Gator Golf, as suggested by these leftover blueprint placements. The player would have played every single golf hole in Gator Golf. Well, this is the end of my segment. Thanks for having me on, Loon. Alright, bye now, friends. Check out Remains!
For being 2 years into development, This was not a great look. I mean, there were a bunch of gameplay ideas, most of the maps seemed finished. Really, shouldn't it be done by now?
Was just add more stuff. That was one of those moments where it really exploded into a much bigger space.
I think the biggest challenge has been, where do you draw the line on the fun? We need this because it makes the game so special, but do we really need this because we have other things to do? We'll be in a meeting and I'll hear something and I'll go, oh, do we have time for that thing? And then by the time it was over, I'm like, I'm gonna go away and find time.
What if one of the arcades was also a dance club?
How would you compare the game now versus the game in its original scope?
10x?
Yeah.
10x
times as big.
I mean, even from when I joined to what's coming out, like, wildly different game.
The game was rapidly changing and growing throughout production, and Scott was aware of this, but rather than reeling it back, he directly encouraged this. There's no knowing how things would have turned out if Ray McCaffrey hadn't joined, especially in terms of when it released, as he was responsible for supposedly cutting feature development time in half. And still, with this faster turnaround time, it still took until the end of 2021 to release. Now, as of March 2021, it's likely that the map was fully completed. On March 13th, Daco held a WWF charity stream, in which one of the donation rewards was a set of wallpapers, which were all screenshots from the game. Here's how those teaser images compare to the final game. Even this late into development, the atrium still had significant changes, like the salon being walled off, the stage completely changed, all of the tables were flipped, and there were no hiding spots. And Fazerblast had an incorrect garage door. It was a daycare one. It's very pixelated, but you can also see doors and fences, which of course were all removed. Now for Chica's green room. Minus the mirror, it's almost the same as the final. Even this late in development, L-Chips was also still not separated by a wall yet. Outside of that, most of it is the same. But for some reason, in the old one, the tables on the right have space decorations. Minus the cutouts, Fazerblast is identical, except for some reason, the room in the very back is deloaded. Even though this is incredibly similar to the final, the lobby is not. It's almost completely different. Outside of the general layout, literally everything was changed. Here is Freddy's room, and here it is in the final game. I'm just kidding, I'm gonna show the whole room, but it has to be cropped a bit. Only the mirror and a poster are different. This one might look similar to the final, but it's actually very different, especially if you look closer in the background. There was actually an escalator that led to a hidden area. Aside from that, a lot changed. Outside of the bottom right corner monitor, everything was changed, rearranged, or removed. This one looks nothing like its final game counterpart. I don't know why they felt the need to change it to this. This is just a really weird choice. I think the other one was really pretty too. This area basically didn't change at all. The only differences are the font change and the door in the background were added. This next one was really hard to replicate, because lining up the mouth perfectly means that the background was lowered. The giant gator head used to be angled lower. There were a few more changes too, like the projection and the giant Monty Golf logo being removed. And side note, Monty is T-posing. Here is Monty's room, and here it is in the final game. It's the same story as Freddy's. Outside of a missing mirror, knocked over speaker, and a tilted poster, it's actually the same. Now for Roxy's. The wheel asset was swapped, the curtain was removed, the mirror was lowered, and a vent was added. Otherwise, it's just darker. So, funny story about the next one. It doesn't exist anymore, so I can't compare it. This one remained 99% the same, the main difference being the play area and the secret area in the top right. I didn't mention it since it's kind of hard to see, but the interior in the last image, as well as this one, are completely undamaged in the original. Outside of that, the only differences are the trash can in the bottom left, and the sign on the right. This one is mostly the same. Chica looks less stretched, and a save station was added. That's the only difference, outside of some lighting bugs. This one also doesn't exist. Thankfully, this one does, but it's only hidden in the files. Believe it or not, it was changed. Pinball machines were added in the back, and the ATMs were slightly altered. That's it. Since based on these teasers, we can probably assume that most of the map is finished, meaning we can finally talk about this. This is the earliest version we have of the entire map. I'm no expert, and I certainly don't have the time to learn all this, but I know someone who's already put in the work.
Hey, I'm Petrikor, certified Pizzaplex expert, here to tell you everything you need to know about these maps right here. Now, Security Breach's map is kind of notorious for not making a lick of sense, but this wasn't always the case. According to the Faz map, Pizzaplex is 5 stories tall with 2 basement levels, but the pre-release map shows us something different. A pizzaplex that is only 3 stories tall, with 2 basement levels. Everything in the final version of Security Breach is on this pre-release map. What they did was they separated and stretched this map to add those additional 2 levels. The ground floor and the first floor shown on the FAS map are actually just one floor in the pre-release map, the ground floor. Same with floors 3 and 4. On the pre-release map, that's just floor 2. It was necessary so that the elevator load zones they added later would make sense. The actual placement of everything in the pizzaplex aligns perfectly with these pre-release maps. The FAS map, on the other hand, hardly lines up at all because it's covering for the existence of these new elevators. Now, we'll move from floor 2 to basement 2 and catch everything we see that's different from the physical pizzaplex we explore in the game. The first immediately noticeable thing on this map is the extension of the atrium balcony all the way to a catwalk behind the stage, and we can even load this backstage catwalk back into the game, along with all of the stuff below it. Moving clockwise, we've got something interesting. This long corridor that seems to connect up to nothing in particular. What this became is actually a multi-floor series of connectors between the atrium, L-Chips, Mazercise, Kids Cove, and the daycare. Most of the doors that led here still exist in-game. There was also one in L-Chips behind the counter, but mysteriously, in a later version of the game, this door in particular was removed. Moving south, we have L-Chips and the East Arcade, and though nothing here was cut, we can see the map reflects the more open version of this area without the airlock separating the 2 sections off. Next, we move on to the West Arcade. Of course, being canonically moved up a floor meant severing a lot of the original connections this area had to other parts of the building. We have a corridor connecting it to the prize counter, which is alike the corridor on the other side that connects the prize counter to the East Arcade. And we can also see a connector that meets up with the atrium in the same spot the elevator ended up being in the final game. We have the West Arcade and Bonnie Bowl linking up here, which we can see in the RTX trailer for the game. There's a path from this karaoke room to the Bonnie Bowl bathrooms and entrance hallway, and a small connection between the West Arcade maintenance hallway and the back area of Bonnie Bowl. Speaking of the maintenance hallway, there's also extra connectors between it and the main arcade next to each of the karaoke rooms. Lastly, for floor 2 we have Bonnie Bowl. The first is this area behind the bowling alley. On the right side of the bowling alleys here, behind this wall, we can find a door. This door would have connected the back hallway we just discussed to a staircase. We can figure this out by visualizing the leftover volumes and actually see the staircase as it was. It comes down, connects to the Roxy Raceway entrance hallway, goes further down into another cut hallway we'll discuss very soon, and then even further down into a cut section of basement 1. And with that, we're done with the second floor. Moving down to the first floor, it's a bit simpler to cover. There's an entrance to the salon from the Roxy Raceway sublobby, which we can get a good look at by looking at cube maps. Cube maps are basically big 360 screenshots of a location that tell the game how to render the reflections in a given environment. Moving to the right, we've got the bakery. There are 3 entrances here that got removed. The first one on the left here leads behind the stage. We have this entrance on the south end, and we've got a long corridor that leads into the Monty Golf sublobby, similar to the cut entrance we just discussed for the salon. This one can be seen in Dorko's screenshots. Heading south, we've got the daycare. The room behind this band door is a part of that big multi-floor series of connectors we discussed on floor 2, with an entrance to the daycare, the lighthouse in Kids Cove, and the staircase up to the rest of the connectors above. The second floor hallway used to extend further to the right here, past the bakery hallway and to another daycare entrance that comes out just above the door to the theatre. Finally, moving over to the West Arcade, we have one big connector hallway that joins the arcade up with the atrium and the lobby. It connects up to where the elevator entrance is in the current version of the game. There's also this small area down here, and this room continues down to a corridor that connects up with the locker section of the customer service area in the lobby. Also, here in the lobby, we've got these 2 hallways that connect up with the food court kitchens from 2 entrances on either side of the glass elevator. Of course, we can also mention the other half of the food court on the east side, which is blocked off in the main game, but still implied to exist. Moving up from there though, and we have this long corridor from the junction between the sublobbies all the way across more than half of the length of Roxy Raceway. I should also mention that across from this hallway's entrance is the top of the west atrium staircase that leads down into the basement. Also connected to this hallway via another smaller hallway is the main entrance to Roxy Raceway, which is sadly out of order in the full release. It's actually used as the background of the game's options menu. Now we're at Rockstar Row, and before I address the elephant in the room, we've got all these rooms up here that were removed that connect up with the loading dock, and all of it comprises the VIP area. The VIP party room, kitchen, and bathrooms. We can find many doors that connect these rooms up to the rooms around it, including a vent entrance from the backstage hallway. And while we're on that hallway, there were also 3 connectors in between the Rockstar Row green rooms that would have connected Rockstar Row to that back hallway. Heading down now, we finally get to the backstage area. This is one of the largest rooms that was cut from the game's final map. Its ceiling reaches all the way to the top of the Pizzaplex, with those catwalks from floor 2 suspended above the rest of it. There are 2 staircases on either side that go from the 2 ends of the catwalks on floor 2 all the way down to basement 2, connecting all 5 stories of the Pizzaplex. These 2 staircases that lead up to the backstage office used to go south into the larger backstage floor, instead of, in the final release, being squished into these 2 side rooms, because instead, there were other entrances into the larger backstage area as a whole. From Rockstar Row, the Rockstar Row hallways, and everything those 2 staircases ended up connecting to, including the bakery entrance we mentioned earlier. The backstage office also has a room that used to exist below it that was of similar size, which got replaced with the small room and the passage to the atrium that you reach by jumping down the vent. Moving east, we have this large area that mirrors the loading dock on the west side. We have pretty much nothing else to go off of with this area. Here in Monty Golf, we have the scrapped walk-in entrance, which honestly looks really nice. Sadly, another victim of the elevators. In Monty Golf, there's a room behind the Gator Grub kitchen, but there's not much else that can be said about it. Moving down from the golf entrance, we have the east atrium staircase and a hallway across from it, mirroring the other side. This hallway connects up with the Gator Golf entrance, and opposite that, a considerably sized cut entrance to the daycare from the doors in Kids Cove. This one's a little bit strange because even though the doors on the Kids Cove side remained in-game, the place they would come out in the daycare itself was walled off. In the actual daycare on the south end are a couple of hallways that never got implemented either, and that's the ground floor. Basement 1 has a significant lot more to talk about than the other floors. Not so much the FAS map, which actually has some cut basement rooms of its own that we'll get to. Despite the sheer scale of cuts here, a lot of these corridors and rooms have no traces beyond very basic blocking. We can also label this map, and that is going to make this a lot easier to understand. We'll start from a point of reference, the wardrobe and storage area. First off, there was a set of bathrooms connected to the storage in various ways, and a bunch of extra corridors, including a path down to basement 2. Down from the bathrooms is a small storage area, and to the left of that is our first R&D room. R&D does not mean research and development. R&D is shorthand for round. It serves as a junction to connect up the different major parts of the basement. On its left, R&D daycare connects up with the kitchen, but because none of this daycare stuff exists anymore, this path was replaced with a help wanted Easter egg room. Last thing to talk about is the large corridor north of R&D, and to the left of it, the boiler room. Instead of a bunch of cramped corridors, this room was huge. It extended down into basement 2, as we can see on the map, and comprises a series of catwalks through the wider area. In the kitchen, most things made it through, except for the large vat room. Some of you may be aware of a level 12 security door left behind in the game. Behind this door is the Fazablast basement, starting with a cut R&D room. The Fazablast basement is actually split between 2 sub-levels, the main floor on the bottom and a handful of rooms between the basement and ground floor. Move northwest from this R&D area and there's a ramp that connects these 2 sub-levels. Up here, the north part of Corridor 11 leads to a staircase that goes up to the corridor behind the Raceway party garages, but head south and you have a connection directly to the Fazablast arena. Corridor 10 is the hallway that goes over the R&D room we started on and moves up to connect with the Fazablast security office. Moving back down to the lower floor, we can see where the server room actually used to be, connected up with Corridor 5 on the bottom and Corridor 6 at the top, which is the corridor you see in the intro sequence of the game. Also connected to Corridor 5 and 6 is the R&D room with the spiral staircase from the Vanny ending. The room then has one extra cut corridor which connects it up with the familiar staircase up to the Roxy Raceway corridor on floor 2 and the back hallway of Bonnie Bowl. And finally, south of this is a staircase that connects to the small Fazablast back room with the Fredbear poster. Now, we need to discuss some cut rooms that aren't on this map, but are on the in-game Faz map. This area here on the left and over here on the right. These areas, kind of like those raised parts of the Phasoblast basement, are in between basement 1 and the ground floor as a sort of basement 0.5. They connect up with the atrium staircases at both sub-lobby junctions, and those staircases go down to both basement levels. The section on the left connects up with the Phasoblast office door, although so did Corridor 10 from before. This connection was made to replace the original basement plans we just covered. This corridor also has another connection north with the Roxy Raceway information desk coming out at this door. The right side is quick to touch on too. It connects up with the Gator Golf office, which itself is already set lower than the rest of the ground floor, via a small corridor that also links up with the daycare using a staircase that would have exited between the two bathroom entrances. With those two addressed, we can get back on track with Roxy Raceway. Starting at the far left staircase from before, we link up to a Roxy Raceway R&D room. This connects up to the large corridor from the intro and another large corridor that just connects up with the room behind this Monty gate. But moving up from there, we reach a notable room, Gas Proc Roxy Raceway. This room actually spans 2 stories. This spot on the right is a catwalk above the lower part on basement 2. On the left, we have the top floor part of the area that has connections with another big hallway and a staircase down to basement 2. The south entrance to this room was another spot replaced by a Help Wanted Easter egg room. Real quick, we're going to move over and talk about the Monty Golf quadrant. As you can see, just like Roxy Raceway, it has its own gas proc room, which likewise spans both basement levels. South of that, we have a uniquely named room, Plants Gator Golf. We don't have much on this area unfortunately, other than the fact that it's connected to the atrium staircase at the sub-lobby junction. We've got 2 R&D rooms connected with a long, large corridor. Right of the first is a staircase down to basement 2, and right of the second is a staircase that leads you up to Monty Golf, which would have spat you out here behind the bathrooms. Down from there is a staircase that links up with the bottom floor of Monty Golf's gas proc, and at the very top, we connect up with the backstage portion of the basement. The main central corridors of the basement connect up to every quadrant of this floor, including 2 staircases down to the basement 2 warehouse on either side. R&D Backstage 1 is still in the game, but it used to have many more connections, including one leading to the basement 2 section of Roxy Raceway. The large staircase just north of it used to have another exit to a different staircase down to parts and services. In fact, this is mirrored on both sides for both backstage staircases, and that brings us down finally to basement 2. The corridor that leads to the Endo warehouse had some changes on the corner. Firstly, the removal of the eastern backstage staircase, but also the room was transformed from this small corridor into a more open room. Half of the main north corridor above the stage lift was cut. This connection was replaced with the Plush Baby Easter egg room. South of the stage lift is a completely removed corridor connected to the warehouse. Oh yeah, and the warehouse is huge. But this wasn't just rough planning. No, we can get a good look at just how gigantic the pre-release warehouse used to be. We can see the bottom floor segment of Gas Proc, which is raised a bit higher than the standard level of basement 2, and both entrances to this area were replaced with Help Wanted Easter egg rooms. But beyond that, we have the garage. With many staircase entrances from basement 1, including from the Golden Roxy room, we have one of the most interesting areas in the basement, in no small part due to the fact that it can be restored very easily. This one has an interesting shape to it that I admire, and as you can see, it's very simply a storage room for the Raceway's carts. The staircase at the top left here is actually the same staircase as the one you climb back up after the Roxy boss fight. Monty Golf has the bottom floor of its gas proc room, which again is raised a bit higher than the standard basement 2 level, and finally, the daycare. There's one storage room in the middle of a small corridor that connects up to basement 1 on both ends, and the bottom half of the boiler room's catwalks are represented here as well. That is everything. That's still a lot of cut content, don't you think, Loon?
It's finally over.
Exactly. But with that, it's time for me to hand it back to you.
That was a lot. Let's just take a little breather now. Thank you to Millicop for making a special version of their mod that restores the basement. That version was as faithful as possible to the remnants we have in the files. After comparing it to the final game, we can definitely better understand why the basement was cut. It was a giant, confusing, empty mess. And after actually playing through it, I'm really glad that it was cut. I don't know how it made it so far in production. Now let's continue in the timeline. This is the oldest dated thing we have in all of the files, which is a test for Monty's boss fight intro cutscene. However, the storyboard must have come before it. There are some notable differences here, like us at the gun still, us visibly hopping off, which is only done in gameplay. In fact, we never see Gregory's face in cutscenes, so it could have been planned to be done in first person. It would also cut animation work in half since they wouldn't have to animate Gregory. But due to there being multiple shots of Gregory, I'm willing to bet that he was planned to be in the cutscene. From a storyboarding perspective, it would be incredibly confusing to make. I'm unsure why they changed it from the storyboard. It would have been difficult since Gregory was such a big part before. Now for the real early cutscene. This was made on April 8th, 2021. There's no lighting, so everything looks really bad. Not only is the walking animation super rough, but his physics are super janky. His tail goes flying. Unlike the final, he also just stands for a sec. There's also some weird things going on with the gator carts in the background. Or whatever they are, I don't know what they're called. The gun does not change. There's also a weird giant black floating texture everywhere. Shortly after, on April 15th, Steel Wool held an Nvidia conference, where they primarily focused on the technology behind the graphics. However, luckily they also took some interview questions, some of which I already showed earlier, so I won't be repeating. But here's one I haven't shown yet. It's pretty cool. This explains how Steel Wool pitches their ideas to Scott, and the fact he was very open to them. The only other thing of note here is this exclusive render of the lobby. It looks like the gift shop was completely finished. However, the statue and the floor were notably different, as well as the lighting. Most of these differences were already seen in the RTX trailer. However, there's also this view of the prize corner, which looks really weird since the polls just suddenly stop. That's all there is to know about the conference. Then, on April 28th,
the fan base, when they find out that I have to delay the game again, they're gonna kill me. They're gonna burn my house down. They're gonna tar and feather me. I'll make a game for them.
Scott posted that the game was going to be delayed again, and with it, this game. There were no teasers at all in the game. It was just a random spin-off. Just 2 days later on April 30th, this placeholder cutscene was made. It uses this weird random soundtrack in the background. There's an identical file named Roxy Boss, which I'm actually playing right now. Since there were placeholders for Monty and Roxy, the blank placeholder file might have been meant for Chica's cutscene. Next is a file from May 20th, and it's one of the title screen animations. This is the earliest build we see in non-cutscene form. It has some notable differences, like staff bots in front of the stage appears to be a different color, and pretty much everything here is identical to the teaser. I won't be playing the whole video here though, because it's 1 minute and 20 seconds long. A similar shot to this one was used in the final game, so we can directly compare the two. This makes the differences even more apparent, especially the gaps in the tables, the Pizzaplex sign not being lit up, and the static running along the ceiling and billboards. And here's what the end looks like so you can see. Just a day after, this was made. This is a really weird version of the daycare. All the lights are on, but the background is the nighttime variant. It also seems to look nearly identical to the trailer version, which is especially weird considering it was supposedly unpolished then. This cutscene is just as long as the last, however for some reason it just freezes and then cuts to black. 2 days later, on May 23rd, we got the Phaser Blast title screen. Unlike the other two, this one's only 15 seconds long. Also, it matches the final game minus the door, and the fact that it's much darker. Another 2 days later, on May 25th, we got this. Compared to the L-chips we used to see, this is kind of a significant downgrade. I'm unsure if it's the lighting or something else. Also, for some reason, it had a very delayed start before it started moving. And this would be our last internal file for a while. Jumping ahead to June, we got this concept art. This was made by a studio called Gizmo, which was the studio responsible for all of the long cutscenes, including the intro, along with both the Burn Trap and Vanny ending cutscene. This was made, or at least started, on June 7th. Another date on the file references November 11th, so it might have been finished then, and was just made over an old project file. Now here's something a little more interesting. This is the storyboard of the cutscene that you get after defeating Monty. While this plays out, let me tell you about an interview I had with a developer. They gave me a small snapshot of what the game was like in June of 2021. This developer confirmed that many of the glitches were actually patched before the game's release and then somehow ended up unpatched later. This was likely caused by several things, all stemming from remote work. But that's just speculation. By the way, in the cutscene, Gregory's using an elevator, which makes a lot more sense than the final game where he simply teleports. In the final game, all we see is Gregory pressing the button, and then at the end, he's on the stage. Back to the interview, something that was specifically unpatched after it was patched originally was in Princess Quest 2. By not killing turrets, they could still shoot at you through walls, leading to this chaos. Something else that was notably unpatched was some of the collision. Another example of this is in the secret daycare room. Around 2 weeks before release, it was perfectly functional, but in the final game, you can very easily clip under it, and the fence next to it also has no collision. As we continue, here are the rest of the storyboards, which we sadly don't have a date for. The dev I talked to confirmed that many things were cut because the game couldn't handle it, even after optimizing them as much as they physically could. They confirmed Sony censored the game, and also that survival mode was the only game mode, there was no story mode. They also confirmed Steelwool's philosophy of realism when designing the Pizzaplex, explaining that a lot of the realism was lost when they had to add a bunch of elevators. They also explained that the original idea for the backstage sequence was too complex and simply wouldn't run, and the sequence in question supposedly taking around a month. They also state that the entire map was finished as of June 2021, and every cut area was still in the game. Each attraction had more than one way to get in and out, there were no elevators and instead there were only garage doors, and smaller areas, particularly airlocks, were replaced, with some being replaced by long twisting tunnels. At this point, survival mode was feature complete outside of placeholder items, and story mode had just barely begun. The intro sequence with placeholder dialogue, the lobby sequence, and the daycare sequence were all complete, but that was it. Everything else, from boss fights to office sequences, were not complete, and this includes all parts and service minigames, meaning that yes, the base game was completely rushed out in under 6 months. Honestly, very impressive. The developer states that Balloon World was completed, Chica's Feeding Frenzy was in the same state as it is now, and so was Monty Golf, but there was a completed camera feature that didn't make it in the final game. Princess Quest 1 was incomplete, it only really had some bugs though. Princess Quest 2 was complete up until this, so about halfway done, and Princess Quest 3 was also half completed. The maze was unfinished, Foxy was completely broken, Princess Quest 3's items didn't exist yet, pits didn't do damage, and the room in the top right didn't exist yet. The base game also had no GUI. Unfortunately, that's it for both storyboards and developer insight. Other info given was confirmed through other parts of the video, and not stated as speculation. On the topic of developers though, there's some very interesting developer text. This is right where we get the backstage pass. It says, "Is sad, out of tears, time it takes to break being 0. Also game is broke, and delete the entire project." I hope whoever wrote this is okay. The next 3 videos of characters' heads were all dated July 20th. It's really weird seeing them so closely. I won't be showing them fully since they're normally visible in the game. On the subject of Vanny though, I want to mention that after Ray McCaffrey joined, he asked Vanny's voice actress, Marta Svedek, to voice Gregory, despite her previously saying she didn't want to play child roles. She now plays 3 characters, the other being Roxy. Next in the timeline is this parts and service title screen, which was made July 19th. This was actually a screen recording. At the end, you'll see a mouse cursor. Also, the area looked pretty incomplete for being 4 months away from release. This one's from the same day. The location looks mostly finished outside of some lighting and that middle wall there. It also has ambience going on, unlike the others, so that's what you're hearing right now. Also on the right, a pipe is clipping through the sign. This was made August 31st. Just a warning, it has really unpleasant audio, which I'll play in 3, 2, 1. The horrible noise is also in the final game. It's just muted and a different sound effect plays instead. On September 1st, Security Breach TV was launched. It was pretty cool. Clicking on Freddy's nose would make it honk, and if you hovered your mouse in certain places, hidden messages would appear. The website eventually hosted teasers, and would change slightly with each one, including characters being on the side monitor if you clicked it. This video was shot on September 2nd. Outside of the developer text in the top left, it looks almost final. Then on September 7th, the first teaser was able to be played on this website. Clicking on the green button would play the teaser on the big screen. The series was a fictional cartoon called Freddy and Friends on Tour, with each episode being released sequentially, all having slight teasers for the game. These teasers were shown through glitches. They were really hard to see because they only lasted a few frames. Then at the end of each episode, there was some sort of animated teaser, which was followed by the logo and a few numbers that would eventually make the release date. Here are the other teasers, which all displayed some sort of text and numbers. This turned out to be the cipher for an in-game puzzle. The second episode released on September 21st, episode 3 was on October 5th, and the final episode on October 19th. Now here are the rest of the teaser animations. All of these teasers are still in the files, meaning they were made in-game. The final episode would constantly flash purple and yellow pixels. If you line them up on a 4-wide grid, you could actually get a teaser of Glitch Trap. These teasers also created even more hype for the game.
Do you see the large vent in the floor?
The entire backstage cutscene was its own separate file, made October 5th. This part of the intro cutscene was made on October 8th. Then on October 18th, the entire intro cutscene was made, just a day before the final Freddy and Friends episode. One day later, on October 20th, this was made, less than 2 months before release. In fact, outside of the first one, none of the endings were complete yet.
You can no longer hide from me. I have new eyes.
Disassemble Freddy.
Oh yeah, and it has voice lines.
Gregory, run!
We are so lucky we get to see this. It is super cool. Finally, on October 27th, the last trailer was released. I won't be showing most of it since most of it is the same as the final game, but there are a few notable differences. The bathroom was in a much earlier state, and it looks like Freddy's UI was actually different here too. It was more spaced out. There appears to be a timer above the monitor. There was a placeholder save station graphic. The old version of the map was still used for the camera's mini-maps. The text displaying time was different. The flashlight had wider range. Freddy's walking was much smoother. The stun animation was different. And there was one more unused Vanny cutscene. And we finally have our release date. The Glamrock Salon was finally walled off. There's also some missing lighting, and that different Fazcade sign. Floor pattern was slightly different, and the East Arcade sign was also different. And the top middle balcony was also notably different. Despite it mostly being the same, it still had the secret upper area. Now the rest of the video up until this timestamp will be cut content, so skip ahead if you aren't interested. Minus this bit of green screen, this entire cutscene was completed November 11th. This is right before the earliest documented date that cut content was last touched, which is November 18th. Since most things were likely cut before that date, I can now finally talk about all the cut content that we haven't gotten to yet. And after this song, I'll be playing the game's cut music. Now here are the rest of the storyboards for the endings. These are dated November 22nd though. They're long, so I'll be playing cut voice lines over them so you're not bored to death. But first, I need to show the end of this, because there's actually a difference here. This one doesn't have a star at the end, potentially meaning different endings didn't have different stars. Or maybe this one was 0 stars at one point. Who knows?
I see you. Let's have some
Tag! You're it.
Now it's time for a classic Fazbear cartoon.
Return your gear or I will be forced to call security. Hold on, soldier. Return your equipment to the rack to exit. Great job. You qualified to enter the Superstar Club. Come in and take a souvenir Fizzer Blast prize. Too bad. You can press the reset button to try again.
Your health points are displayed on your headset. Each time you are hit, you lose 1 health. Each time you capture a flag, you will regain health. If you lose all your health, you lose the game. You will be playing base attack. Capture the 3 enemy bases by defeating each guard and then pressing the button under the base flag.
You are on the blue team, soldier. Report to the blue hallway. Aim for the glowing targets on your opponent's vest and pull the trigger. Successfully shooting your opponent will deactivate your opponent's weapons for 5 seconds. Based on the color of the target, you will receive between 1 to 100 points.
This is your final warning.
Keep smiling. Pressure sales mode activated. Sell, sell, sell. No free samples. I sell things that you want. Spend money here. Buy this. Red balloon, Sunny.
The place is closed.
Hello, please take this map.
Security breach. Warning, obstruction detected. He's hiding over there.
I've looked everywhere. It's not here. I'll find it eventually. Look, I don't know where it is. Do you know how many arcade games there are? I have the second key. I don't know how to fix it. What am I going to do? If Freddy was working, we would have him by now. Okay, I didn't mean to. He walks through every security door as if he owns the place. No, I can find him. It won't be like the last one. Monty, Roxy, Chica, report. Where did he go? Get over here. He's here. He can't be far. Check the area. Contact me if you see him. I found him. Over here. I'm sorry. I think we lost him. You've got to trust me. Is someone there? Please come out. I'm here to help you. Gregory, I can keep you safe. Gregory, is that you? I'm here to help. Hello? Gregory? Gregory?
This attraction costs 1 party pass.
Give me back my eyes! My face! My face! My face!
In the old laundry room, I mentioned dev text. A developer confirmed this to be an Easter egg. It played if you entered with a staff bot during the pizza minigame.
I am home.
You're home early.
I quit my job.
What about the children? We have a down payment on a new closet.
I do not know what I was thinking. I was compelled to leave my post.
This is no longer working. I am leaving.
Do not go.
May you be happy in the life you have chosen.
Here are cut lines that were meant for the bots in the sewers.
Come closer. Help me.
And here's an entire cut magician routine that was supposed to play in the daycare theater.
Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Fazbear Theater. Now enjoy the mystery and magic of the one and only staff bot.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what I am about to show you may confound and confuse you. Some may become scared, yet I implore you, do not be frightened by the mystical powers I possess. Do not fear the unknown, but be warned. The unknown is both dangerous and uncontrollable in the wrong hands. Now, for my first trick, I will pull a rabbit out of my hat. Error, no rabbit found. Error, I gotta get a new hat. I need a new hat. You sir, is that a coin behind your ear? No, because I now have it here in my hand. See, here, in my hand. Ooh, now, for some hypnotism, I will now pick an audience member at random. You, sir.
Who, me?
We have never met before.
No, I have never seen you before in my life.
Sleep.
Sleep, sleep, sleep. I am human sleeping. I cannot sleep. I am a robot. I have no ears.
Can I have another volunteer?
I hope I get picked.
I hope I do not get picked. No volunteers. For my next trick, I will make the audience disappear. Close your eyes and count to 3. 1, 2, 3.
Wow, amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
And lastly, for a cut gameplay feature, there was also staff bot tutorial dialogue for the go-kart mechanic.
Happy birthday. Lightly give it some gas. Let off the clutch. Wrong way. Avoid the red asphalt. Guide right. Careful now. Not too fast.
Merge into traffic.
Yield to traffic. Watch the curve. Avoid the cones. Take the cart out of neutral. Release the handbrake.
All right, Roxy.
Those are all of the storyboards, so as we continue to listen to cut dialogue, I'll be showing the cut Monty Golf holes.
Oh, my arm! Don't worry about it. It's just a scratch from the vent. I'm fine. Why won't she eat? I saw her eating out of a trash can earlier. I didn't think robots needed to eat. This is backstage? I guess it's why they keep the curtains closed. Leave him alone! I might be able to get through this vent, but I don't have anything to open it. Maybe there's something in all this junk that could help. Somewhere else. I can't stay here, right? Well, it's a really big room with robot stuff. It's pretty quiet in here. There are these robot skeleton things hanging on hooks. Am I in the right place? I think that endo moved. Hey, over here! Hot! Too hot! Freddy, it's cold in here. Freddy, it's freezing in here. That endo's frozen solid. It's holding some sort of camera? I don't know. That one, I guess. Not now! Freddy, I don't think I'm alone in here. Freddy, I need your help. Come on, where are you? So, what is this place? Where'd it come from? Really? I can go on any attraction? Why are the lights still out? There's a vent back here. How do I get to it?
Freddy! No!
Attention! Command voice override. Are you having fun yet?
Dismantle Vanny! Dismantle Vanny!
Princess Quest 3? So, this sinkhole is why the raceway is closed?
Let's take a break from the dialogue for a second. Those are all the unused Gator Golf holes, so now it's time for something more interesting. This is a cut minigame that seemed mostly finished. It was called Chica's Feeding Frenzy, and you might know it because it was re-added and finished in Ruin. It was just a cute little bullet hell where you played as Chica. There were various enemy types. Purples expanded slightly then died, the orange arrows could only take one hit, neither moved or shot at you. Bosses were little rainbow things that increasingly shot more and shot quicker, took a ton more hits to explode, then every single boss would drop a different weapon. This one is a shotgun type. If you were super lucky, an enemy would drop a cupcake which would do this. All it did was freeze enemies. Once the effect was finished, you could run into the balloons and pop them for points. The gray enemy type shoots at you. The third weapon is rapid fire. By the way, once you run out of a weapon type, there's no getting it back. The green enemies expand a lot, but can't move or anything. The fourth weapon type is a bomb of sorts. And the last weapon type is a sniper of sorts. While it functioned well, it was definitely not finished. Getting a game over resulted in a weird sort of exit screen. Also, underneath the map, there was a glitch texture, like in Balloon World. Next, I'll be showing cut graphics and cut maps, explaining a few things while the rest of the cut dialogue plays. First, here are unused staffbot variants.
Welcome to Nazercise. Work off the calories while you eat. Sign up for a membership pass today. Super cool perks include discounts on pizza, nachos, fries, and cookies. Now that's the smell of fitness.
There is a cut camera icon meant for the map, showing you the direction of each camera. This could have just been a development asset though. This icon would have showed up if a camera needed to be repaired. There's a bone texture, and there were various placeholder graphics, like this soda machine one. Many of these placeholder graphics were from asset packs that were used and reworked into the final models in the game. Because of this, I won't be showing all of them. There's also an unused Bonnie Bowl t-shirt, and several images meant for frames that go unused, including this beautiful photo of a canyon. In addition, there are pool assets despite there being no pool in the game, and books we never get to see the full covers of, such as the band, various placeholders, a sun and moon cover, Monty Swap Adventure, World History, The Daycare, Master Security Guide, How to Treat, Fazbear History, and whatever this one says. There's also a wrapping paper texture. And lastly, this unused billiards texture. Unfortunately, there are so many graphics in the game, it's likely impossible to find all of the unused ones. These go-kart animations were used in the game, but the bottom screens were not. There are actually quite a few cases of this in the game. I spent a while manually reanimating these from sprite sheets, which includes those Bonnie Bowl animations, which we can now see unstretched. As these play out, here are some more unused voice lines.
Are you lost? I'll take you to your parents. Let me take you to your parents. Your family is looking for you. Your parents, want you to follow me. Don't worry, you're safe with me. Gregory! Where are you? No more games. Our friendly security staff can help. Come out wherever you are. This area is off limits. This area is totally off limits. Staff only. I'm just trying to help. Who wants candy? I found you. There you are. Tag, you're it. Stop it. Lost boy over here. I smell pizza. Pizza?
This is the Parts and Service Center. When any of the band members have technical problems, we are sent here for maintenance. We also receive software upgrades when our behaviors need correction. I have something for you. Take it. It is a Freddy Fazbear Party Pass. I do not know. I was holding it when I rebooted. You can use it to open the gates to one of the many attractions, but it can only be used once. You will have to find additional party passes to access the other attractions. Fazerblast, Monty Golf, Roxy Raceway, just to name a few. I have marked all locked attractions on your FAS map. Where are you going?
Here are some unused animations. There are also some subtitles for dialogue that's no longer in the game. The quote-unquote classic Fazbear cartoon has lines such as, "Wanna join our band?" "Whoa," "Gulp," "Need a hand," and "Laughter," which matches the dialogue of a Freddy and Friends cartoon episode, meaning it was meant to play in the daycare theater. Now for some unused item stuff. Here's a blue version of the Fazwatch. There are some unused upgrades, unused test items, and unused collectibles. And here are early sprites for items that were in the final game. There were also unused subtitles for the ending cutscenes. Gregory used to say Vanessa was gonna kill him, and there's one unused sound effect. At least that I could find. There are so many sound effects, it's really hard to go through them. There are items of various rarities, a Fazer Tag Champion badge, and cameras used to be unlockable. And that's it for unused items. Now here are some unused missions. These are hints for decommissioning Monty and Roxy. There are some test messages which correspond to Plan A, B, and C, which I'll show in a second. In the files, there are some text explaining Plan A. Plan B is only connected to the loading docks, and Plan C is connected to the prize corner. There's also some unused text relating to the Fazwatch, specifically how time wouldn't pass when you were looking at it. There used to be a different saving and loading system, one that didn't even have the option to delete slots. By the way, the previous song was the last of cut music. And now we're finally on to cut maps, which I'll say right now will make up most of the cut content section. First, here are some cut daycare airlocks. I'll also be resuming the cut voice lines and jump in when explanation is needed. This one connected to the big gate outside of Kids Cove, and would connect to the daycare through this wall. And here's another daycare airlock, along with a cut line.
There is a flashlight in the daycare. You should check it out.
This airlock connected to the daycare through this wall. Now for the area outside of the Pizzaplex. While it's technically used in the game, you can not only barely see it, but you can never really walk in it. Even if you glitch out to it, walking on it at a certain distance will deload it instantly. And now some more cut voice lines.
Maybe there's something in Glamrock Gifts. On the first floor. Next to the checkout counter. To the left?
Correct. It is just... if we separate for any reason, it is not safe for you down here. It is easy to get lost. You should get a utility map from the warehouse. It is on the other side of the stage lift. Look for a security office. There should be a map and a security badge. Those are endoskeletons. That is not possible. You must be mistaken. An endo cannot function without its shell. Everything seems to be offline. The entire arcade has been shut down.
Here are cut paths from the lobby to the food court.
I'm afraid the doors to the atrium are locked as well. This is not standard procedure. You should look for the security office on the top floor. Perhaps if you adjusted the heat in the boiler room, you could melt it.
Here's the Gator Golf Cut Utilidor. These areas have some significant lag spikes, so I'm sorry in advance.
The boiler room is down in the utilidors. I will mark it on your map. However, I do not recommend you go there. There must be a problem with the main generator. Until power has been restored, I am afraid it will remain dark. Many doors will not function properly. Your Fazwatch should still work though. I have marked the location of the generator on your map.
This one actually leads right to the Monty Golf office. For better or for worse. Heading back to the door is a staircase that leads right to the daycare. Sadly, upon climbing the stairs and getting close enough to the daycare, it'll just deload the stairs, but if it was functional, you'd be able to enter right between the bathrooms.
Gregory, check out these shirts. Which one do you like best? Oh.
And now for the Fazer Blast Utilitunnel. This one leads to both Fazer Blast and Roxy Raceway.
I cannot believe you were able to collect enough toys to become a VIP. You sure collected a lot of toys. Perhaps we can do something to stop whatever is going on here. My finger doubles as a lighter. You know, for birthday candles. And creme brulee. Whoopsie. You found a security badge. For every badge you carry, your security access increases. It is an odd system which would be easy to exploit. It seems like an untrustworthy person could take advantage of such an obvious security weakness. but I highly doubt anyone would be that dishonest. Gregory, I know why you are not in the customer database. I remember you from the... Whatever it is, do not let it find you. I hear what some guests say about me. Bad things happened in the past. But that was not me. Those were older models. Flawed. I would never hurt anyone. You know that, right?
Roxy Raceway used to be open. Next to the first recharge station used to be a utilitunnel and a Monty gate to get there. Sadly, there's nothing at the end though. The one on the right would have somehow led to Roxy Raceway. This one used to be connected to the server room though. Now in their place are black voids. This is all that remains of the upper stage area. It's all floorless, minus this part.
Where are you going? Come back. I thought we were friends. Superstar Gregory. Where are you? Why do you hide?
The next bit of cut dialogue was for survival mode, but since it's incredibly long and there's a lot to explain, I'll be frequently interrupting it. Here's yet another daycare airlock. I actually showed the entrance first. And now for that dialogue.
I am sorry, Gregory. You did not make it out in time. That is unfortunate. The main entrance will not open again until 6 a.m. Think of it as a slumber party. Or a lock-in. That is a party where you lock all the children in a building, and they have a slumber party.
This connects two mazer-sized back hallways.
No one is allowed to enter or leave. It is fun. Fazbear Entertainment no longer hosts lock-ins for legal reasons. You seem impatient. Do not worry about the security door. It will remain closed as long as there is power left in this zone's emergency generator. However, if you wish to leave this office, press the flashing button on the security console. It will open the security doors so you may leave. Otherwise, I have compiled a list of 5 suggestions to help you through the night. Suggestion number 1.
Now this is connected to the big backstage map, which I'll show very shortly. A literal second in fact. Also, you may have been wondering why none of these have proper lighting. Most of the lighting was not implemented or was removed. Here's the cut Glamrock Salon lookout, which actually has 2 doors for it, but one of them seems to lead to nowhere. This specific map I'm playing on in question is called Segmented Lighting. It's the earliest version of the overworld we have, and it has most of these airlocks still in it.
Look for prize boxes that have been hidden throughout the building. They should have helpful items to get you through the night. The Freddy Fazbear Mega Pizzaplex Deluxe Lock-In Birthday Scavenger Hunt package is normally reserved for special birthday kids. We will make an exception in your case, seeing as how you are not the birthday boy. Suggestion number 2. If you find a party pass, give it to the party staff to access the attractions after hours. Suggestion number 3. You must stay hidden and keep moving until the lobby doors open at 6 a.m. Suggestion number 4. You need to hide in a recharge station at the end of every hour. I will meet you there. You can also call me from your Fazwatch at any time to help, as long as I can find you and have power remaining. Finally, suggestion number 5. Check your Fazwatch cameras for threats and hidden prize boxes. You already have access to the lobby and atrium security cameras. Visit other security offices to add new camera systems to your Fazwatch. Thank you for taking the time to listen, Gregory. I wish you luck.
This is the old version of L Chips, slightly newer than the trailers. I am in RTX now, but I had to turn it off because of immense lag, which I just cut out. And even with RTX off, it's still crazy laggy.
The security doors will open in 3, 2, 1.
And that's the end of the survival mode message. The pink pulse textures and a few others are sadly broken, particularly the floor texture breaks in a few places. It's super cool we can finally see what behind the counter looks like. Outside of the absurd amount of bottles and random can on the floor, there really isn't much different from the final game. And of course there's a tiny bit of decor missing. Now back to the voice lines. This place is pretty large, so it's gonna be a large chunk.
Go upstairs. We need to head back to the lobby. Gregory, I am too big to go through vents. Gregory, run! Do not look back. Do not watch. Chica, Roxy.
Here's an oversized graphic. This coin pusher is an example of a placeholder arcade, which was directly from an asset pack. While this version of the map is newer than the trailer version, it couldn't have been that new considering they had a placeholder arcade machine. And this isn't the only example in the map, the basketball ones are too. I'll show those very soon.
Monty, do not listen. Resist her. Please. You do not want to do this. No. Stop. No. Please.
There's a strange random sphere here. It seems to have been used for scaling, as it appears to be about 1 meter long, but I could be wrong. Also, on the left here, there's a weird texture. I'm not sure if it's a placeholder or if it's just because the texture was missing or something.
Vanny. It is very similar to Vanessa. That cannot be a coincidence. Gregory, you have a choice to make. The door is open and you can go, or you can continue to investigate the secrets of the Pizzaplex. I feel there is something else going on besides the dancing rabbit lady. There is also something strange happening in Fazzy-Blast. I do not know what it is, but I can take you there if you wish to investigate. You can still return here and leave later if you have second thoughts. How unfortunate. The save spots have been hacked. They are no longer usable. But here's another party pass I found. This should help you in your investigations.
This is in a slightly older version of the Gator Golf map. The old version of the stomach room is actually floating up here. Here's what it looks like with no lighting. There are quite a few broken pieces, including this floating buoy underneath the ground, which slowly sinks up through the ground. These treasure chests are not floating though. The barrel and toxic waste are floating above in a similar manner, almost like they're pretending to be the fireflies. In addition to these weird bits, the room was actually very different from the final. And now here it is with regular lighting. Here's a vending machine similar to the old kitchens, but this one at least has textures. And speaking of textures, the textures on the bones and the ceiling are all messed up here. This room has the old sign font seen in the teasers. I'm unsure if some of these assets are just misplaced, like the ceiling seems to be, or if the layout was genuinely just super different. Despite having barely any lighting, this room also lags a lot. I just turned RTX on to see if it looked any better, and it seemed to actually just look worse. But regardless, here's a direct comparison to the teaser image. Minus of course the red walls, we can see that basically everything was changed. Now here are some cut game mechanics. You used to be able to enter this pipe and slide down it to Roxy. There used to be a button to pass through this garage door. This one's pretty strange. It still had you sit and wait for it to load too. There was a different staff bot jump scare which was seeable in the pre-release. Chica would have a unique animation at the door in survival mode. There was an extras menu with a character gallery. Said character gallery would showcase each model of the characters. However, it was in some weird big fat room, and it's not the same layout as the one in the kitchen, though it is similar. Also, the models seem to be older versions, as some of them aren't quite right. If you noticed earlier, Freddy didn't have eyes. There's also the unused Frozen Endo variant. It additionally had an arcade viewing mode. Here's Eyeless Freddy again. You may have also noticed all of these characters have their own unique poses. We even have Gregory, who looks a little weird. Also, some of the characters' eyes have this shine that isn't seen anywhere else in the game. There's also a different version of a staff bot, and a really messed up Chica. We then have Sun, a messed up version of Vanessa, and lastly, a slightly messed up Roxy. Now back to maps. In Rockstar Row, there used to be a door right in the middle of Freddy's poster, which unfortunately doesn't have a floor. However, if it did, it would have led to the backstage. Next to each respective animatronics poster is one of these cut corridors. All of them except for Freddy's have the exact same shape. I feel like these are the least thought through cut hallways. It would make way more sense if there was just a door inside of their back rooms rather than a whole separate hallway. 4 of them at that. And now for the VIP room. This was that top left area of the map that I mentioned earlier, connecting directly from the entrance hallway that leads to the atrium.
Gregory, I do not mean to be intrusive, but I read that message that you found in the security office. There may be a chance to stop Monty from hunting you. Monty loves hanging out on the catwalks. You can find the entrance in Mazer size.
This VIP room also has a connected kitchen, which also has multiple connections to backstage, and some interestingly offset doors, which are still in the final game, visible out of bounds.
According to that message, one of the staff bots brought the key to the Superstar Theater. The entrance is located in the daycare. If you have not done so already, you should check the Phasoblast office.
As you saw earlier, this connects back to the VIP room. The old daycare walls with more starlights are still in the files for the game, but sadly that's it. This next area should be very familiar. It connects the atrium to the West Arcade. It was also used for a teaser image.
Gregory, as soon as it is safe, return to parts and service. You have the spare parts necessary to begin an upgrade procedure.
This wall connected directly to the lobby, and here's the exact shot used in the teasers. This is known as the Hive Room. It was going to be part of the West Arcade. In fact, it even somewhat has proper placement over here. This is on the second floor, right next to the staircase. It's less connected to the first floor though, which I'll show in 1 second. In fact, the bottom part doesn't even have a floor.
Gregory, please, we should stick together. Hello? Is someone there? I am afraid I cannot see you. Gregory, are you sure? Some would call this a point of no return.
Next is the old path from the West Arcade to the prize corner. It's incredibly similar to the tunnel that connects El Chips and the prize corner. The tunnel would lead right here. Here's something else I mentioned earlier, the new version of the Bat Room. There are a few differences, like these extra lights on the ceiling, but most notably, the bats here are different.
Gregory, I have a bad feeling. I do not wish to go down there. If we do not expect to return. This is your decision. Are you ready?
That's actually it for all cut dialogue. Now here's another connection to the West Arcade. This is in place of the current elevator. This doorway might have used to lead to Bonnie Bowl. There are also some early graphics here, like a sketch version of Chica running. This hall connects to the West Arcade right where the bridge ends. Here's a cut area that's still in the game. This is the audience stand in Roxy Raceway. You're no longer technically able to get up here and look at things closely. While I show this off, here's the last bit of cut dialogue. It's a placeholder version of the voice line for survival mode.
I am sorry, Gregory. You did not make it out in time. That is unfortunate. The main entrance won't open again until 6 a.m. Think of it as a slumber party or a lock-in. That is a party where you lock all the children in the building, then have a slumber party. No one is allowed to enter or leave. It's fun. Fazbear Entertainment no longer hosts lock-ins for legal reasons. You seem impatient. Do not worry about the security door. It will remain closed as long as there is power left in this zone's emergency generator. However, if you wish to leave this office, press the flashing button on the security console. It will open the security doors so you may leave. Otherwise, I have compiled a list of 5 suggestions to help you through the night. Suggestion number 1. Look for prize boxes that have been hidden throughout the building. They should have helpful items to get you through the night. The Freddy Fazbear Mega Pizzaplex Deluxe Lock-In Birthday Scavenger Hunt package is normally reserved for special birthday kids. We will make an exception in your case, seeing as how it's not your birthday. Suggestion number 2. If you find a party pass, give it to party staff to access the attractions after hours.
This out-of-order gate used to lead to Glamrock Salon. Roxy Raceway also has an underground area that's still visible through fences, but is not accessible. Unlike the audience stands though, this was actually finished and intended to be played in, since not only do survival mode presents spawn here, but there are 2 intended entrances. One is a door connected to the stairs at the end of the Roxy fight, and the other is a Monty Gate, which is actually connected to the area with the elevator that leads to the Burn Trap boss fight. Oh, and here's the door that connects to the staircase, which is completely unlocked in this map. This is also the version of the map in segmented lighting. This next unused map is really cool. It's an early version of Roxy's boss fight, which was very different.
Suggestion number 3. You are going to have to stay hidden and keep moving until the lobby doors open at 6 a.m.
It's so cool that there were even vents we could climb through here.
Suggestion number 4. You You need to hide in a recharge station at the end of every hour. I will meet you there. You can also call me on your fast watch at any time to help, as long as I can find you and have power remaining. Suggestion number 5. Check your FazWatch cameras for threats and hidden prize boxes. You already have access to the lobby and atrium security cameras. Visit other security offices to add new camera systems to your FazWatch.
The West Arcade used to have these cool neon lights in the ceiling. This is the old entrance to Gator Golf. It used to be just a walkway instead of elevators. There was also this random hallway. It was pretty small and not really significant, so it makes sense why it was removed. But it seemed that some of the assets were deleted from the game, so they didn't load. Specifically this character art on the wall, but I could be wrong. Now into our final cut area, the other side of the food court. This whole space used to be accessible, but now it's locked behind out-of-order doors, which used to be level 10 doors. Most areas and connections were barred off not just because of loading issues, but to make the game more linear. It was once still accessible from the other side though, from a staircase shaft turned elevator shaft. In the final game though, it's completely cut out. The inside looks just like the other versions, however it's completely empty. I wonder if it was ever even possible to access the kitchen side, since they all have level 10 doors and are only connected from the other side opposite of the fence. I'm certain this area was segmented in order to hide some collectibles here or something. Anyway, here's the rest of that final voice line.
Thank you for taking the time to listen, Gregory. I wish you luck. The security doors will open in 3, 2, 1.
This cutscene was officially finished November 24th. Then the escape ending was finished November 30th. And this is when we get the earliest build of the game that we have access to, the pre-release build. There are only a few differences, all of which I've already covered. A majority of the other endings were finished on December 6th, in the order I'm showing them to you. Or at least, this is the order they were exported. It goes Burn Trap, Disassemble Vanny, then the loading dock ending. Then on December 10th, all of the title screen backgrounds were made, just 6 days before release by the way. These were also exported in the order I'm showing them, which is backwards of the order they play in the game, except the Hour 6 menu was made before Hour 7, making the new order 6-7.
No, don't say that.
Then on December 12th, the VIP ending was finished, and the true ending wasn't finished until December 13th, 3 days before release. And then finally, the game was released. That was a lot of information. So what can we take away from it? Now that we've finally laid out all the information, we can start to put some of the pieces together. The game getting completed at all in any state was kind of a miracle, considering how inexperienced and small the team was. And yet we still got a game with more content than some AAA games. This is an indie project that looks like a AAA game. The game in its original state just simply couldn't run, and if no one can run your game, no one's going to buy it. But we can say with confidence that so much love was put into this game, and it really shows. They went far above and beyond. They wanted to make something massive, and I'd say they accomplished that goal, even if they had to cut down the size a bit. Who knows what it would have been like if it was done by a larger studio. Even though the story may be incoherent, and the final game mechanics are certainly lacking, I really feel bad for the game. Steel Wool should have definitely been more transparent with us. At the end of the day, we still got most of what we were shown. I'm unsure if this is true or not, but it feels like they ran out of time and ran out of budget. If COVID hadn't happened and there was one extra year of development, I feel like we could have gotten the game we always dreamed of. But sadly, it's too late to undo their mistakes. Despite all of its shortcomings, it still captured the hearts of so many, because the game was beautiful. People liked the characters, and as long as you weren't the one playing it, it really wasn't that bad. I still had so much fun and have so many good memories of just looking at all the things. The game is just so gigantic, I couldn't imagine looking at every single asset. What we got was still incredible in its own way. Despite all its shortcomings, it was still probably the most loved game in all of the series. It has the most fan content I've ever seen. I know Ruin was the spiritual successor, but why would they want to ruin something that people loved so much? They made all of this content, and it feels like by giving up on it, they're letting it go to waste. If there was more story to the characters, if there were more things to do in each location, if they had eventually finished the planned survival mode, They could have gone back and fixed things, but I think they realized the damage was already done, and I could imagine it was too much to fix. This game's development was a huge lesson for Steelwall. They're now permanently and exclusively remote studio, but this allowed them to reach far more talents than they could have otherwise. So it might have honestly been for the best for them. While the gameplay lacks polish, the glitches incidentally make the game a sandbox again. It leads to basically endless possibilities, and it made the game itself far more amusing than a letdown that it was before. It allowed widely enjoyed challenges. Because of the glitches, I've sunk at least 300 hours into the game, and while I enjoyed the base game for my own personal reasons, I definitely wouldn't have otherwise. I should mention, all the cut content was mostly cut for a reason. If it was that great and important, it definitely would have landed in the final game. Like I said earlier, a lot of areas just didn't have anything to do in them, and the cut areas were no exception. They were more fitting of survival mode. Though I still think survival mode would have been better than the game we got. Even with all of that though, it can still be said that this cut content all inspires us. All the missed potential of this game does. Honestly, this video is my love letter to the game. I want to recognize all the efforts of the team, especially those that were lost. We can all criticize it, but really I do think they succeeded at their own personal goal for it. And the ideas in it are all amazing. We might never know the full truth or see what the game was like in its early days, but maybe that's for the better. We can learn so much from their mistakes and be inspired to finish what they started, and the mystery will keep us coming back, more than the developers ever intended. I just wanted to give a huge thanks to Petrichor, DK, and Millicup. They were instrumental in helping with accuracy and info, and if it wasn't for the effort by them and the rest of the community, we wouldn't know half as much as we do now.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was such a privilege to be featured, and I'm happy to have contributed towards helping people better understand what this game was. If you guys have any concerns about my section, leave a comment down below, and leave a like while you're down there. My friend Loon really worked hard on this. He deserves it.
Thanks a ton, Loon, for having me on to talk about this for way too long. I really appreciate the opportunity. Subscribe to both our channels, obviously, and if the stars align, maybe we can do this again someday.
Anyways, thank you so much if you watched this far. If you'd like to support me, please share this with a friend, as this video took months and the collective effort of years of research done by the community. But as of now, my next video will be every glitch in Secret of the Mimic. Thank you again so much for watching.